Good afternoon, good evening. It's Tuesday evening, it's 7:30, and it must be the Tuesday night show with me, Chris, Leicester's Lie Die, and him, Craig. And as somebody appearing much better than me once said, although it's changed it around a little bit, it's good evening from me, and it's good evening from him. Hello, Craig.
Hi, Chris. How you doing this evening? Looking very resplendent in that top.
Well, it's about only one of the few that fit me, unfortunately. My COVID isolation is adding a little bit of weight, a weight where I don't need it, unfortunately. But
Tell me about
there we go. Yes, there we go. The only thing that's expanding is my waistline, unfortunately.
Exactly. I was saying to someone the other day that over the lockdown, I lost 10 pounds, but then I found it again around my waist.
Very true. I know the feeling. I do know the feeling. I'm actually getting a little bit excited. I don't know about yourself.
Yeah. Well, you weren't last week, so hopefully during this week the excitement has ramped up for you.
I think it has. I think it is. It is getting there for me. But also, as we were just talking then before we came on, tinged with a little bit of nervousness because it is the opening day. We are away to a newly promoted team. We did touch briefly on this on the post-match show with Brad on Sunday. But I'm going to take you back, first of all, to the 18th of August, 2001. And we had the brilliant Peter Taylor as our manager. the previous season, and just see if this actually rings any bells at all, but the previous season, we had been top of the league for a little while. We were punching above our weight. 2 weeks, but that was only because of the international break. We got Wycombe at home in the FA Cup quarterfinals, which was like the dream draw. We lost that. I think we've don't know if we won a game after that. Slid down the table, stayed up because of obviously our early season form, and then started the following season against Bolton, who had just been promoted, and got stuffed 5-0. Do you remember that?
I remember it very well. I was just thinking you were sounding as negative as a Gareth Southgate England team.
I thought you felt it that day, to be honest with you. Yes.
Yeah. No, I remember it very well. As I mentioned previously, I think I was on holiday in Cyprus and in a cafe somewhere watching all the scores come in. And I think I was wearing a Leicester top at the time, but I eventually managed to find another T-shirt to put over the top.
I was actually living in Burnley at the time, and I was out with my kids, and I was watching my phone to keep up with the scores. And sort of 1-0, I thought, well, we can come back from that. 2-0, well, this is Leicester, anything's possible. 3-0, I was a bit worried about that. And then obviously ended up 5-0, and the rest of the season is quickly forgettable. And of course, we did exactly the same thing on the famous Match of the Day Gary Lineker in his boxer shorts show when we were as champions. Got a away game to Hull, who had just been promoted, and they did us as well.
I was at that game, and I remember it very well, and it was awful. And it was a long drive. I'd managed to somehow set my sat nav to avoid motorways, and I was wondering why it was taking me so long to get to the ground. And I got there, and it was shocking, and then had a wonderful drive back. The one thing I remember from that game is I was very impressed by Andy Robertson, and he's gone on to do pretty well.
Yes, yeah. And not impressed by Harry Maguire?
I don't remember him as much, to be honest.
No.
I've probably just blocked most of it out, to be honest.
He was probably in the jail somewhere, let's be honest with you. Ouch. Right. Well, now we've made ourselves totally miserable. Let's be what us Leicester fans always are, and that is optimistic, keep the faith, and look forward to West Bromwich Albion, who really, in a bit of a way, have taken over the mantle of ourselves. Because I remember we always used to be the team, 70s, 80s, that used to get relegated, get promoted, down, up, down, up. That's pretty much West Brom at the moment, isn't it?
It is. They are the boing boing baggies. They just keep bouncing back, going down, bouncing back again, and it'll be interesting this season because obviously they've got Bilic as the manager, who should be able to keep them pretty tight at the back, I would imagine. And it's the thing, isn't it, with most of the teams. We saw Sheffield United last season had a fantastic defensive record. Hardly scored any goals going forward, to be honest, but that defensive solidity, kept them up there and looking strong for a Europa League spot until the very end of the season. But so it'll be interesting to see if he keeps them tight. I think he's bought a couple of very good players as well, and we'll probably touch on that when we talk about the sort of formation that I think we should go with. But there'll be an interesting proposition, but we do have a very good record there at the Hawthorns over recent years, so hopefully that will continue.
Jamie Vardy does, doesn't he? Certainly, but
he does. It's a shame. It's a shame there'll be no fans for him to wind up.
I know. There's talk. It's just been announced today that I think all the September games are going to be shown on TV, and I think the Burnley game is on the BBC. So we've actually got a free game there to be able to watch. Under 21s win with a 94th minute penalty. You take that, don't you? You take that, Yeah. But can I just thank everybody who is watching at the moment, and just to remind people, which I forgot at the beginning, if you want to click on the link that's on the Facebook page, that will take you through to StreamYard. You can register, then your name comes up. Otherwise, I just see you here as Facebook user, as for example that one there. So feel free to add your name onto the end of your comment, and then we can give you a shout out as well. Otherwise, I keep having to look over that one.
That one probably is Casper watching.
Hopefully he's playing tonight, isn't he? Or no, Denmark aren't playing, are they? Oh, is it right? Okay, so how do you think it's going to go on Sunday then? It's a new season. Players, we've not had them all back.
It's a tricky one. We're not blessed defensively at the minute with injuries and suspensions. As the Facebook user says there, the injury to Evans. Obviously, he was missing anyway due to his suspension. Kaglar will be coming back off international duty, so he won't have a lot of time. We won't have had a lot of time to work with them. I'm not sure on it. I think we've got to be looking at these games, this first 6 games or so. We've got to be looking to try and set a marker down because it only gets tougher from here on in. And I think his team selection will tell us a lot about his thought process. He has a tendency to go a bit Southgate for me sometimes and worry a little bit too much about the opposition. But it's a tricky one, but I expect us to nick a win, to be honest.
Do you think he'll go? Evans is suspended for 3 games anyway, and that was Rob, by the way, who was saying that about being worried. So good evening, Rob. Do you think he will go as I was saying, Evans is out anyway for 3 games, I believe. The first 3 games he's suspended for. So Onshu should be back as long as he doesn't get an injury. Is it too soon for Castagna?
No, I would put him in, but it very much depends whether he goes with a 3 or a solid back 4, to be honest.
Yeah,
I personally think I would go with a back 4. I've come up with the team that I would play. Maybe let's go there because I think if he goes with a 3, I think it's untried. You've got 2 players alongside Kaglar who have not played a lot of football defensively. James Justin did a great job when he was in a 3. But again, it's not his natural position. And then you're going to have to choose either Benkovic or Amati to play in between the two of them. And then for me, that leaves us a little bit exposed wide, where I think West Brom's best attacking options come from. I think if we do that as a 3, their best players coming out wide, I think we either get pulled back into a 5 very easily, or the two wider players of the 3 get pulled out, and then we're exposed through the middle. So I would go with a solid back 4. I would play Castagne over Luke Thomas. I know I said last week that I think I would have preferred a proper left back, but I would go there and I would play James Justin as a right, and then Cags. And to be honest, I'm not sure whether it's Amati or Benkovic, but I think he needs a centre half in there alongside Cags. I just think we need a solid back 4 to cope with their best players, who are Diagana, who looks a fantastic signing, and even more so Pereira, the Brazilian, who sometimes drifts out wide, plays through the middle a lot, but very often he'll drift out to the right. And I think those 2 players could cause us a lot of problems if we're playing with a 3 and just pull our wing backs too far back.
So you think he's going to go with a 4? So
I'd go with a 4.
Just read those 4 out to me again.
So obviously Casper, then I'd go with James Justin. At right back, I'd go Castagne at left over Luke Thomas. And I'd have Soyuncu and probably Amati, although Benkovic could go in there.
I mean, do you think? I mean, I was impressed with Amati before he had sort of his sort of bad injuries, and I think he looked quite solid. I mean, all right, the goal he got a goal, which always looks good on the CV, but I mean, it was a bit of an easy one for him. But I wasn't sure when he started to play. I mean, he is a bit of a utility player, but he can play centre back, and he has at least got the experience that Benkovic hasn't got at the moment.
As I said, I think I mentioned when you were doing the weekend post-match game, it's only 3 years ago he was player of the tournament for Nigeria at the African Nations Cup, playing as a centre half. Exactly, there's a lot of good players in that tournament, and he took player of the tournament. Yeah. So I think he can do that. I totally agree with the Facebook user who talks about a stuffing midfield, because from that back 4, I would then have Ndidi in front of them.
Yeah.
And then I would have Perez, Pratt and Tielemans as a 3 behind Iheanacho and Vardy. I was watching the Sheffield Wednesday game, and I thought it was strange to me the way that Brendan had got them set up, because he played with Vardy as a lone striker with the 2 wingers, so Barnes and Gray. But whenever we seemed to get the ball in midfield, the 2 wingers seemed to come in field, and the width was coming from the fullbacks. Now, if you're going to ask wingers to come inside, there's no point playing wingers, from my point of view. So you're better off to having creative midfielders behind your front 2 who can create something and then leave space for the fullbacks to push on. It means that indeed he can push back into and make a 3 when the fullbacks have gone, but we have 3 players sitting behind 2 forwards, and we can take the game to them more. I think I don't like the way that he sets up with 2 wingers and then asks them to come inside.
Do you think he might take Ndidi back into the defence again?
I hope not. I mean, he's a guy that most teams, even some of those top 4 teams, would covet. He's our linchpin there in the middle, sitting in front of the back 4. I think it's foolish to take him away, because you may strengthen the little the back 3 if you want to play the back 3 a little bit, but I think you seriously weaken the midfield with Ndidi. And I always prefer him playing as a 1. Whenever he's put 2 defensive mids in there, for me, Ndidi always seems to think the other guy will pick someone up, whereas when he's playing as a 1, he knows that's his role. He's more happy to sit and he'll clean everything up.
I mean, I can never see a reason why we should start any match defensive. I mean, and have two defensive midfielders. I just aren't. Yes, if we're protecting it's dangerous if you're protecting a league, because I don't think you can ever protect a 1-goal lead in the Premier League. I think you're dicing with fire. But I can never get starting a game with sort of two defensive midfielders.
You know what? For me, I have this conversation with my son. I think this has all come in. We now look at formations as if they're on FIFA. Positions didn't exist. When you and I were watching football, and I know some of the users will say that we're two old guys talking about football again, which we are.
Yeah.
But you had midfielders. You didn't have attacking midfielders, defensive midfielders. You had a midfielder, and their job was to fill the midfield and get box to box. But now we also always seem to create these positions that people have to play and fit in. I hate the term defensive midfielder. Full stop. To me, you're a midfielder.
Exactly. And so going across midfield, you've got Perez, Pratt, and Tielemans. Are we going to hold on to Pratt? There was talk about him.
I think so. I think we should. I mean, for me, he was a really neat and tidy player last season. I think he was getting better the more time he had on the pitch. I think some ways, we didn't use him to his best ability. We sort of saw him as a second holding midfielder. But I think there's much more to Pratt's game than that. We only saw, I think it was the cup game away at Brentford, where he played that fantastic raking pass out to Gray for Iheanacho's goal. So I think he's got a lot more to give, and I think he could be almost like a box-to-box midfielder, allowing Perez and Tielemans to be a little bit more creative, to be honest. And as Andy Medhurst says there, we only had one. We had Kante. I remember who was it? It was the Steve Walsh, the guy who was behind the scenes at that great team, and being asked what was the midfielder, wasn't it? And he said he plays Drinkwater in the middle and Kante either side of him.
Yeah, I think the other one was like Kante supplies the cross and gets on the end of it. Well, rumours are, of course, that he could be leaving Chelsea.
I did see that. Yeah, I mean, I'm surprised. For me, he'd fit in any team. You'd make any team stronger because he allows the more creative players in front of him to stay up and be creative. Because he's that sort of security blanket that you've got. Yeah, and indeed he is ours.
Indeed, he's what? Sorry.
And indeed, he is our security blanket. He does that Kante role. So I don't think we should either weaken him by putting him back or playing someone alongside him. No.
I want to bring that point up there, which was a big season for Perez, and I tend to agree with this. Apart from the Southampton game, he was poor. I don't know if he's been poor. I don't know if he's been worth 30 million, but have we played him the same way that Newcastle ever played him? I mean, did they utilised him more up front, and were we using him out on the wing?
I think he's a very, very clever player. I think if you look at the games and look at assists and goals, you maybe say, he's not really contributed enough. But he takes up some fantastic positions. He's a very, very clever player. And I think he's better with better players around him. Sometimes when he plays in that sort of number 10 or coming off the wing, he's looking for little 1-2s. And Vardy isn't that kind of player, to be honest. I think he links up very well with Iheanacho. And I think Perez, Iheanacho and Tielemans can be very, very creative in that little pocket and letting Jamie do whatever Jamie wants to do, to be honest. But by all accounts, the other night, Tielemans ran the game when he was playing for Belgium. So, it's a big season for Tielemans for me as well.
Yeah, and also I think a huge season for Iheanacho. I think we saw glimpses. I mean, I was so excited when we signed him. I really was. And at that point, I actually worked with a Manchester City season ticket holder, and her and her husband both season ticket holders, used to drive up from Dorset up to Manchester for all the home games, and that was some journey, I've got to be honest with you. And they did it every week, and she was distraught that they sold Iheanacho. She really didn't want to see him go. And when we got him, I thought, this is good. Him and Vardy together running at defences, I really got me excited, but it hasn't really sparked, has it?
I think sometimes because the transition is too slow. You know, if we get the ball moving quicker and trust each other, and I think that's a big thing in football, that you watch the top teams, they will give somebody the ball under pressure because they know that they'll handle it and they'll do something with it. We still have that little bit of, I'm not sure, there's a defender 5 yards away, I'll take an easier option. I think when we transition the ball quickly, we get those players turn. I think that spells trouble for the opposition defences to me. And I think Iheanacho has got the ability to do that. He's got quick feet. He's a confidence player. I think we can all see that. The more that he plays, the better he gets. And I think his goals to game ratio was right up there with Vardy last season.
Yeah, and do you think his future, I mean, Jamie Vardy now is what, 34, 33, 34. He's not going to go on forever. We know that. I think his role will possibly diminish more and become more of the super sub striker coming on for the last 10 minutes when he can, you know, we can terrorise sort of a tired defence. Is that when Iheanacho will come in on his own? I
think so. I think you may see them. Yeah. I think you may see Vardy and Iheanacho in and out. As I say, I'd like to start them as a two and see how that works, to be honest, with a more creative pair behind them. But I think you may well see that Vardy's used, not sparingly, but he's used in bursts to utilize him. And as you say, terrorising the sort of tired defences. But still, you've got to transition the ball quicker than we do.
Yeah, I mean, that is a fair point that Andy's making there, that, you know, you and me could have probably got 20 a season if we were playing for Man City. Well, maybe not me, but, you know, he was playing with players at a different level, wasn't he, you know?
He was indeed. I mean, I in many ways, I would say that Iheanacho is a better finisher than Jesus, who Man City have got at the minute. I think he's a natural finisher, you know, but when he's confident, you know, we saw that with 2 or 3 games. I mean, going back to the Man City game where we lost it 1-0 and he had that great chance near the end, more confident Iheanacho, I think, would have finished that. But I think we need someone else in there. We need another striker. We need to look at what becomes after Vardy, because Iheanacho is a different kind of player. Now, it may be that Brendan sees us transitioning into a sort of team where we don't necessarily need a Vardy. You know, we go down that Man City route of playing almost without a proper striker. You know, I think Brendan's got a little bit of an ego and he sees himself as a bit of a Pep type. Yeah. So it wouldn't surprise me if he tries to do that.
Again, that, and this is Rob again, I think. Yeah, this is Rob. Southampton away, we played lots of 1-2s touch football after Christmas. It was a very laboured build-up. And we did seem to sort of change our style. We seem to play best at the moment when we are almost sort of up and at them sort of thing, you know, it was almost, I'm probably going to get roasted for saying this, but towards the end of the season, it was almost Puel-like the way we were playing.
Yeah, although I think Puel was sort of hard done to a little bit, but you're right, it was just too laboured for me. It's perfectly right. That Southampton game, 1-2s, I mean, just movement off the ball, little 1-2s. I mean, you see it. You've seen some of the international games over the weekend. Portugal were brilliant at doing it, little 1-2s. 2 or 3 other teams, even Norway. I mean, Norway scored some fantastic goals the other night. They played slightly differently, they look to transition the ball quickly before defenses get set. It's easy for me to say. But I mean, we saw it. I mean, perfect example of that. England, Iceland. You know, if you're going to labour on the ball and let a team get back into position, you're going to struggle to break them down. And I think that's what we did too much last season. We turned the ball over, but we were trying to play short little passes instead of playing the ball up, getting it back, looking for 1-2s, and making the most of the chance that we had. We were just any team. As I say, whether you and I could just score as many goals in the Man City team, I'm not sure. But 11 of us could sit behind a ball and make it difficult for any team to score. So that speed of transition for me is really, really important.
No, I would agree with that. And did you say you'd looked at the West Bromwich team?
Yeah, I mean, I'd looked at. I mean, I was looking at what they did last season. They played predominantly a 4-2-3-1. So a lone striker, which was very often Howell Robson-Kanu, and then they had Phillips, Diangana, and Pereira sitting behind them. But because they play two in front of their back four, that means if we're playing a 3, we can get at them. You know, we can get on the front foot because they've essentially got a back 6. Excuse me. And then that transition, when we lose the ball, we've got Ndidi as the sort of buffer, as it were, if we're playing that back 4. But Diangana and Pereira look very, very good players to me. And for me, that's where the danger is going to come from. If we lose the ball and they get them on the ball quickly, which West Brom do play a little bit more direct, so they'll look to get their 2 players on the ball quickly, we could be exposed a little bit. So I think it's important that we take the game to them and try and cut off the supply to those 2 players. We didn't do it. If you remember the away game at Man City, where Mahrez basically had Chilwell on toast for most of that game. What we didn't do was stop the ball getting to Mahrez. You know, that was what you could clearly see. That was the problem. So I think those 2 players need to be picked up, and I think we should have enough going forward to take it to them. But they are 2 very good players and the main danger for me.
Yep. This let me just see who's in this. Sean Patterson. This should be a massive season for Demarai Gray. I think it's a massive season, we've said, for a lot of players out there. You know, Harvey Barnes, and I do think he's probably slightly better than Gray, but there's a lot of players with the potential. But I always come back to, is it lack of game time that we don't these days have a reserve team? You go from the under-23s, is it, up to the senior squad, and when these players aren't playing, like the likes of Inacho, Gray, etc., they haven't got they're not playing regular games to keep them sort of, not just fit, but you know what I mean, get them playing. And I think I can never understand why they ever got rid of the reserve teams, to be honest with you.
No, it was somebody's clever idea, probably the big 6 again, trying to flex their muscles that they didn't want it because it risked injury to their players too much. I mean, it is a big season for Demarai Gray. I think when you mentioned Harvey Barnes benefited from that season away at West Brom greatly, I think. That he got regular game time, he could build his confidence. Demarai Gray's not had that. He came from Birmingham, where he played more football, clearly, but he's then not had a run of games. He's been in and out of a team. His biggest problem is, Demarai Gray, is himself. I'm not sure whether it's overconfidence or lack of confidence, but he's come on and done some fantastic sort of impact performances in the last 15, 20 minutes of games. But when he starts, he just doesn't seem to be able to turn it on. And as I say, whether that is having a full run of games, whether we're not being hard enough on him, I don't. But I didn't see what I didn't see against Sheffield Wednesday was Demarai Gray say, "I demand to be played in the first game of the season." If I was Demarai Gray, I would have been demanding that ball and showing what I could do all the time. For me, he didn't do it, and I don't know what that is. Whether it's an over arrogance to him, I'm not sure, but he's clearly got the talent. He just doesn't impose it enough.
I think it's hard on players though when they are only coming on as subs on a regular basis, and Gray is more likely to be a sub than a starter. Is that we are judging them on 10 minutes. And you and me know that you can look at Jamie Vardy and you can take it 10 minutes and he doesn't touch the ball because it's not being passed to him or whatever. And on that 10 minutes, you would turn around and say, well, he was rubbish. And then on the 11th minute, he'll pop up and get a goal for you. So, I think sometimes we can be a little bit overcritical.
I think so. And very much it does depend on the players around you. As somebody touched on about Iheanacho having the ball put on a plate for him. If you've got better players around you who are going to help you out more, then you have more options on the ball. Very often, Gray's got the ball and he's not had many options. So he either has to turn back or he tries to beat one too many players, because I think sometimes we're a little bit too lazy off the ball. I don't think we help each other. You look at the likes of Liverpool, but more Man City, they work so hard off the ball to create little spaces and be available. And I don't think we do that at the minute. Now, whether that's the managerial coaching problem of drumming into them, that I see too often players standing behind opposition players rather than moving 2 or 3 yards to one side to receive the ball. I think it's an issue. Sorry,
I'm going to say, is this going back to what you were saying before about our laboured build-up? Is that when Gray gets the ball, he always, to me, he doesn't always come off, like you say. Sometimes he does go one tackle too many or one, swerve too many. But is that because, and you said because there's nobody there with him, is that because we're not like we used to? We're not pressing, we're not getting up, getting counter-attacking as quick as we used to?
I think it is, because, as I say, if it's too late by the time the ball gets to him, he's doubled up straight away. But I also don't know whether he or any of our players are given that license to be creative. I'm not sure. They don't seem to be brave enough to try something, to try a through ball that may not come off. It's almost like possession is everything. And we know that it's not. We won the league with it not being everything. And I think Brendan, for me, it's a big season for Brendan Rodgers, as much as any of the players, and we've got a lot of games coming up this season. We've got a thin squad, and he's got to show how good he really is now. He's been talked about for a long time, Brendan Rodgers, and I think he needs to step up and show us what kind of manager he really wants to be. For me, he's a little bit too passive sometimes. I don't see him getting angry. I know not all managers are like that, but the manager instills the passion in the players, and I'd like to see a bit more of that from him.
Well, I don't think we'll ever get as much passion as under Martin O'Neill. that was the ultimate passionate manager. But no, it is a very, very good point. And managers do get to, like you say, seasons where they have to prove themselves. Brendan's come in, and let's be honest with you, he came into a pretty decent young squad. It's a squad that you would look at and go, that's a top half team every time. When you look at Leicester, you've got to say we're a top half team. It doesn't. He didn't need to do a bit like when Ranieri came in. He came in on the back of the euphorism of us staying up and that kind of passion and what have you. And sometimes, you only need to sort of tweak one or two things. But whatever he had at the start of last season, he lost it, and it will be interesting to see if he can get it back again.
I think sometimes, managers try and be a little bit too clever, and I think sometimes Rodgers, that can be argued against Rodgers, to be honest. Whether it's everybody thinks of him, when you talk, not that I talk to anybody in any great sort of levels of the game, but when you see reports about Rodgers, a lot of people think he is a fantastic coach. What comes with that is a level of arrogance as well that people talk about. And he needs to find that level, that he can be great, for the young players. And they all talk about learning a lot from him. This season, he needs to put that into what turns up on the pitch. I watched the documentary. I'm not sure if any of our viewers have watched it. Take the Ball, Pass the Ball, which was about Barcelona and the transition through Pep coming into the club and then him leaving. But they had that methodology of football and they stuck to it. And but that didn't come overnight, and it can disappear just as quick. And Pep, Barcelona got boring, at the end of that period because it was pass. And you saw that a little bit, I think, with Manchester City, that they lost their incisiveness with too much passing. And I'm just wary that Brendan may be following that path a little bit too much.
Right. Well, let's look towards get a score prediction off you. I mean, on the website Leicester Till I Die, we have not a prediction league, but we have a couple of ex-players, Steve Walsh, Steve Lynex, and Ian Marshall, along with myself, try and predict the scores. And I'm just going to say that we started this after lockdown. I started this after lockdown last season, and I did not get one game right. So I'm not holding out much hope, but we've all gone for the win. We've all gone for the Leicester win. Walsh has gone 2-0. Steve Lynex has gone 2-0. Marsh has gone 2-1. Probably, our defence might not keep a clean sheet. And I've gone 1-0. So what are you going to add to that then, Craig?
I think 2-1 is a sensible one. I think I might just be a little bit more positive and go for a 3-1. But that obviously, if you're watching Brendan, that's if you play my team. If we're a little bit too defensive, then I think maybe we may sneak it by 1 goal. But I'd like to think that we can get a 3-1 victory.
I've got your team written down there, so we'll come back to this next week, see how close you were. If you spot on, if it's 11 out of 11, I'll buy you a beer when I see you. How about that?
Thank you very much, Chris, and I will hold you to that.
Oh, I know you will, and I can't deny it. It's on camera, isn't it? But
there's 6 people watching who have seen it.
Just to let everybody know, Friday night at 7:30, we've got the Opposition View show. And I've actually managed to get first 3 games. We've got somebody on for West Bromwich Albion, and we've got Burnley and Man City have all agreed to send somebody along, having somebody come on camera. So again, if you go onto the website leicestertillidie.com, there is an Opposition View page where again we put sort of a dozen questions to a fan of an opposing team and see sort of what they think of the 2 teams, the match, etc. And I'm just going to get this up because I don't know whether he was actually sort of on a high when he wrote this or not. But he's got here, as something I've highlighted, once I just bring it up, that I think, and I asked him about how will Leicester do next season, etc., and in Europe. He says, I think you can do well in the Europa League, maybe even win it.
Okay. Was that Brendan Rodgers last?
No. That was Matty Arnold, who's a Baggies fan. And I just think, like, more optimistic than I am about our chances. But,
well, you never know. I mean, we talked about having a lot of games. There's every chance that we may not progress that far in the Carabao Cup, based on the draw that we managed to pull somehow. So, I hate it. I used to hate it being where people wouldn't take that competition seriously. And now we're looking at having a Europa League thing. And you think, will it be too bad if we go out early to that one? Obviously, the answer is yes, because you want to win every competition that you're in. But, I think it comes down to, I think it's October the 2nd is the Europa League draw, which we should all be excited about. I was looking at the teams in that, and there's some big old European teams in that. So
there is,
it's not going to be easy, but I think it'd be something that Brendan will fancy his chances in.
And I've got to say, I agree with you absolutely 100% there. I want us to win every game that we play. I want us to win a cup of some description. Probably won't win the league again, so it would be nice to win a cup. But yeah, like you say, when I saw Arsenal come out, and I'm thinking, like, how disappointed will I be if we don't? Because at the end of the day, it is a case of Europa League or League Cup, maybe, and if we're out of the League Cup, will we do better in Europa League? And I'm beginning to sound like a Man United fan now, aren't I? So,
at least in the Europa League, we're going to get 6 games. It's not that one-off thing with the Arsenal thing. It would have been interesting from the Carabao Cup point of view as to whether he would have played the youngsters anyway, and whether that changes his viewpoint, because I'm sure that Arsenal will probably play their youngsters.
Yes.
In the same way. So it could be that it's an under-21 Leicester Arsenal game, to be honest.
You might have 2 teams out there, neither of which want to actually win the game. But at least there's no replays. It's down to penalties.
That's true.
It's true. So, Craig, thank you very much. As knowledgeable as ever. So thank you very much for joining us.
Chris, did we get your prediction? Sorry.
Yeah, I was 1-0.
What was your prediction?
Mine was 1-0.
1-0, right.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a cagey first game. I think West Brom have got a lot to prove. I nearly went. I can never predict I'll never predict a loss for us, and it hurts me to actually predict a draw. But the way our defence is at the moment, I worry about us keeping a clean sheet. But I think it'll be a very, very tight game. But like I say, it's just we do have a good record against West Brom. So. Yeah. But no, we've got somebody's gone here 2-1 City, which is sort of what you want. You went 2-1 with brackets 3-1 if Brendan plays your team.
Exactly, and I'm sure he will.
If he's got any sense, But thanks as always, Craig. We'll see you next Tuesday when we'll be previewing the Burnley game,
and hopefully celebrating. You buy me a beer.
I'll send it you DHL. I'll send you a can up. And, thanks to everybody for watching. Don't forget, Friday 7:30, I'll be on here live with the West Brom fan, and then post game on the Sunday, we'll be looking back at the game with Brad. You look after yourself, Craig. Take care. Stay safe, and I'll see you next week.
Yeah, thanks, Chris, and thanks to everybody who's been watching.
Cheers. Thank you.